All right. So if there is so just logistically, there will be 4 of these sessions, and we'll suggest doing a 5th one. I've been getting some really good requests through Lemma, and I want to basically honor of those requests for discussing different topics and different approaches, and I won't be able to fit it into basically one math session. So today is a general SAT day. We'll talk generally about the SAT. My goal is to put you in a good mood, put you in the right frame of mind, and the right frame of mind is just about everything. You guys have been in school for a long time. You're excellent students. The questions you've been asking me are out of this world. I've been very impressed by them. So not everyone has asked me a question, but I think those of you who have asked me a question know that I respond very thoughtfully, and I'm just very excited to get those questions. And from, I would say, 15, 20 students who did ask a question, I can extrapolate that you guys are all excellent students. You've been studying. The SAT is looming on the horizon, but it's not a big deal. And my goal is to get you to relax about it, get the most out of the process in terms of personal growth. You know, sometimes, yes, you guys are thinking about college, where you're going to go, what are you going to do there, what choices you'll have, what financial package you'll get. All of these are good questions, but once you're there, that's when the really important work starts. And when you really start working towards your career. The college is not the finish line, it's the starting line. And so I want to keep an eye on that too. I want to put you in the right frame of mind that if you study, you'll be in your first, in this case, math course, because I'm stronger at math than English. And you'll think back to some of the things that we may have talked about, and you'll realize, oh, it was helpful. And I see some people reacting nervously just to the words math class. And I can certainly understand that. But yeah, so I'm gonna help you with SAT. I'll improve your score by 100 points just by talking to you today. But I keep the eye on the greater prize, which is a great career, a very enjoyable 4 years in college, 5 if you go to Drexel, which is where I teach. We have a co-op program, or another school with a co-op program. Always a great option. And you want to enjoy those years, and you want to have a very successful career and a happy life when you get out of college. I think that's our goal here. So yeah, so today is all about having the correct stance, correct attitude, positive attitude, no cramming, no stressing, prioritizing. You can't do everything in the remaining little amount of time. You can't do all that much. So using this remaining time efficiently, growing as a person as much as possible, and doing the best and doing the best that's possible, and enjoying it while you're doing it. So that's the goal. So I actually have a few slides prepared. I know you guys just want to be looking at me, but let me go to the first slide. I'll be right with you. Here we go. Now I will share. Now that's the last element of Zoom that I know, how to share my screen. All right. So now you guys can see my screen. I will minimize actually, I want to see you guys. So I'm going to keep this like this. Maybe it'll block some content, but it's very nice to see faces. And feel free to interrupt me at any moment. Ask a question. Maybe right now somebody wants to patch through and ask a question. You are perfectly welcome. You can stop me at any time. We will share these slides with you afterwards, so you don't need to take any notes. I just hope you're entertained, and with every slide, you begin to feel a little bit better about the whole situation and what's ahead of you over the next, I guess, a few weeks. Let's see. Oh, that's fine. If you don't have a camera, not a problem. Yes, I understand. You still get the extra 10 points on the SAT that you would have gotten had you turned the camera on. Everybody gets the points. And I'm going to spring a surprise on you. I'm a math professor at Drexel. I think that math is the coolest subject in the world. I want everybody to feel the same way, so I won't be able to help myself. And I'll pepper this presentation with a few math questions. Let's say you can answer in the chat. But if you're not as stimulated by my just talking about the SAT, then maybe the math questions will appeal to you a little bit more and you'll be able to answer them. So anyway, so I called it the SAT primer, but it really should be called How to Crush the SAT and Have Fun Doing It. And also important part of my duty here is to refute some of the nonsense that you can find on the internet, on YouTube, that will totally lead you in the wrong way. And yeah, so that's another thing that I'll do. So the most important point in terms of thinking about the SAT, feeling about the SAT the right way, is don't see it as a hurdle. Don't see it as this stressful thing looming on the horizon that you just have to get through, like an outpatient procedure or a trip to a dentist, you know, and you just can't wait until it's over. Don't think about it this way. Think about it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do better, to have more choices in terms of college, to have a better financial package, to make more money when you graduate, to graduate with less debt. Yes, you do have this opportunity to improve, not to improve your life, but to get ahead a little bit in your college experience. This is certainly an opportunity to do that. But if you miss this opportunity, you'll have other opportunities to get ahead as far as your college is concerned. It's not the decider. It's just one of the opportunities among many. So look at it this way. And I have a video that perfectly encapsulates it. This is one of my favorite videos on YouTube. Here it is. I'm going to play it for you. So here's a kid has an opportunity to make 4 shots in 20 seconds to win $10,000 scholarship to go to college. So I think by the screenshot, you can kind of tell how it ends. But this is how you should feel. Let me pause it for you, just so I can complete the sentence. This is how you should feel about the SAT. Somebody just handed you the ball, and if you do well, great. If you don't, there'll be other chances to distinguish yourself. So here we go. Watch this and get, and get the right feeling from it. Here you go. All right, that's right. Oh, I keep landing on this math question. Yeah, that's how I think you should feel about the SAT. Now, of course, this is a joke, and doing well on the SAT is a lot easier than making 4 shots in a row in basketball. I'm an avid basketball player. I don't think I ever made 4 shots in a row, but anyway, but that's what it is. Their life does not end with the SAT or with college you go to. There's a lot more to it. It's just a chance to do well. Okay, now let me get into my element. Everybody prepare to answer. I will flash a math question. A typical SAT math question has to do with fractions and proportions. And I'm doing it just because I rarely get an opportunity to talk to high schoolers. And so when I do, I have to teach them math. And so this will help you a little bit. Okay, here we go. Here's the question. So take your time. There's no rush. And then let's have some answers in the chat. Yep. So I see, that's right. I see some answers that are wrong that I absolutely love. And I'll tell you why. Those who said 4, I absolutely love that wrong answer, because that tells me that you didn't even look at the multiple choices. You just looked at the problem and you solved it, and you solved it fast. And so you said 4. Yes, -4 is also the solution. And those of you who didn't get 4 or -4, which is B, or well, the right answer is -4, because 4 is not one of the options. That's fine also. There's a great lesson in that. The only way to get prepared for something is to make every possible mistake that you can make. And if you didn't say -4 or B right now, well, then you made a mistake that you won't make on the SAT again. So congratulations, you've taken a step forward. So why is this a typical question? First of all, it has to do with proportions. One way or another, an overwhelming number of questions on the SAT has to do with proportions. That goes to my big theme of prioritizing. You might be feeling, not super confident about medians or butterfly charts, or what is it called? Box and whiskers chart, or some other things like that, obscure or complex numbers. There could be a lot of topics that you feel unsure about because they're obscure. Don't worry about those. There's never more than one or maybe 2 questions on that topic. Prioritize the most important topics. And these most important topics are not only great for the SAT, but for life beyond SAT. And number 1 is proportions. Maybe I should say fractions kind of comes before proportions. But number 1 is proportions. Just proportions, proportions, proportions. Look for the proportions in every question. And I'm just very impressed by how many people also answered it correctly. And so fast. And that's another lesson. I'll make all of these points later again. All questions on the SAT are easy. That is not to say, I will use a different words. All of the questions on the SAT are simple. With simple things doesn't mean that they're easy. Sometimes simple things are very hard to see. Like, for example, if you're a boy, I'm referring to my childhood, and a girl is mean to you, you think she's mean, but then you realize that she likes you, and that's why she's mean to you. And that's a very simple realization, but it's not an easy realization to reach, right? You need lots of life experience and how people act opposite, of how they're feeling. Human nature, that's right. Yeah, simple. It's very simple. See, that's a very simple explanation to say that it's human nature. It's correct. That's how people are. But that doesn't make it easy to see. So that's how SAT questions are. They're always simple. That doesn't mean that they're easy. But look for the simplicity. Don't look for the complexity. Have a dialogue with yourself. Ask yourself, why is this question simple? Why is this question simple? Don't tell yourself, oh, this question is very complicated. Gee, what am I going to do now? Look, X on the top, X on the bottom, X on the left, X on the right. That's just so don't look for that. Look for the simplicity. And you say this is a proportion. I know how to work with equal proportions and inequality between proportions or fractions. You can cross multiply. So x squared equals 16. So x is 4. You look at the multiple choices and the 4 is not there. And then you're like, oh, of course, -4 also works because -4 times -4 is 16. And negative times a negative is a positive. Took human beings 10,000 years to figure out. Easy for us. That's just how it works. So typical SAT question, simple and emphasizes proportions. Lesson number 1, look for the simplicity. Next slide. Oh, I went the wrong way. I'll figure this out. Okay, so I'm going to increase your total by 100 points. Here's how I'm going to do it. I will give you reasons not to lose sleep over the SAT. I've just about started saying that it's not the one hurdle you have to overcome, and if you don't, you didn't. That's not like that at all. It's just a chance to advance yourself. There's the biggest mistake that I observe when I take SATs, just to keep myself sharp, is the poor time management of the students behind me, or around me. They run out of time. That's number one thing. That's number two thing that happens. That the number one thing that happens is they peter out in terms of concentration, stamina, and persistence. I just feel like they kind of give up and lose the positive attitude. So getting to the end of the test with a positive attitude, you just have to force yourself. I don't know how many of you do sports, but sometimes you just have to tell yourself, I'm gonna get across the finish line. And on the SAT, you have to be prepared that it's like a long race. It's a long time. This I'll emphasize a lot today. I already started saying that all problems are simple. So if you begin to solve a problem and you get that inkling that, oh, gee, that's what I'm doing right now is not very simple, you have to give up on that approach and look for a different one. There is not a problem on the SAT that requires a complicated solution. I'm not saying it's always easy to find, but it's always there. The style of the SAT is to take a simple problem and make it look complicated and see whether you can see through that. So know that and always look for the simple way to solve the problem. And if you go down a certain path and it's not simple, back up. Don't hold on to your one way that you see to solve the problem. And the SAT tried to take advantage of the natural human nature tendency of doing it, that I'm just going to do it this way and that's that. They try to bait you into a long and complicated solution. I'll give you several examples of that. And it's never the answer. It's never the way to do it. There's always a simple way to do it. I'll give you several examples. Knowing when to use your calculator is another. That's a very specific one. The general guideline is you should use it as little as possible. They use the calculator against you. They give you problems that seem like you want to use the calculator. It's almost like part of the previous point. I'll give you examples of that also. And it would take too long, probably make you make a mistake, will probably make you use too much of your mental energy. So if I teach you these 4 things, then you're fine. And I'm going to do that in the next hour. So there you go. How lucky are you? Oh, I'm going to ask you another question. You already saw my fantastic joke, but why don't you answer this question? Let me blabber 1 second about it. This is a question of words. Going between words and equations. And that's a great skill to have for the SAT and beyond. Speak both languages. Speak English. All of you speak English better than me. And speak the language of mathematical expressions. And go between them. And don't be afraid to do that. Articulate things. Okay, so take a moment to think about it and tell me the answer in chat again. 1,000,000 billion. Okay, I'm not looking yet. Just one answer. Oh, sorry. Oh. Okay, I want a couple more. Take your time. Okay, now I'll look. 4 answers is pretty good. Oh, now they're flying in. And I love recognizing the names from all the excellent questions. Very nice. So 1,000,000 is I'll answer it now. Very good, guys. Very, very good. Very good. And those of you who answered 12, I know exactly what you were thinking. And in a couple cases, it comes from not careful reading. That's another lesson. That's when you read the question, is not the time to rush. Never is the time to rush, but when you're reading the question, take your time. It is common for somebody to read a million, and that's where the answer 12 comes from. But a million, billion. A million is 6 zeros, and a billion is 9 zeros. So when you multiply them together, when you say million, billion, that means you have to take a billion a million times. That's multiplication. A million billion is 1 with 15 zeros. And 1 followed by 15 zeros is 10 to the 15. And so the answer is 15. 15. Very common. Once again, not a complicated question. Look for the simplicity, but words. Read them carefully. Go back and forth between math and English. Now, here comes my very lame dated joke. This is so 2019. Do you guys know who this is? Give me a thumbs up if you know who this is. You guys don't know who this is? Oh, that's surprising. I thought all of you would know. This is, let's see what the chat is saying. Yeah, this is Jeff. Jeff, so he at the time of when I made this slide a year ago, this is from, for a different purpose I used this slide. He was worth 150 million. Whoa, what am I saying? I'm worth 150 million. He was worth 150 billion. I'm kidding. He was worth 150 billion. So that's not quite a million billion, but that's getting up there. And he got divorced. So he and his spouse divided that so they were combined worth 150 billion. And then they got divorced. And so it got cut in half. So he's wondering what's half of that number. I recognize this joke as dumb. I hope that the chats are not pointing that out to me. So let's see. There you go. Let's see. I keep closing the chat so I can, yeah. Okay, good. Good. I'm so relieved that nobody's commenting on my humor. Okay, there you go. Next, let's start making some good. Oh, I'm going to let you read this question, but don't answer it yet. This is a classical question that can be incredibly complicated. They're baiting you into doing the wrong thing, and it's never that. So read this question. I'll give you 30 seconds to read this question. I'm not going to rush you reading the question. However, when you're in full screen mode, it's a little hard to get the chat back. Where is my chat? Oh, now I totally figured it out. Now I know how to do it. Okay. Okay, so I will only tell you right now what they want you to do. And it's deadly in this problem. You look at the first line, you say to yourself, that's a quadratic equation. When you see a quadratic equation, you know how to solve it. You will use the quadratic formula to solve it, of course, and you'll get your R. And then they're asking you, what's the value of this other expression that involves R? What are you going to do? You're going to plug in the R that you get from your quadratic formula. You'll plug it in here, and that will kill you. If you do it that way, you will probably not get it right, and you will probably spend half an hour, and you should not spend half an hour on any one problem. That's one of the top mistakes that people make. You become stubborn, you say, I know how to do this problem, I will do it. Don't make that mistake. Know when to move on. Sometimes you move on and try a different approach. At other times, you just move on to the next problem. time management, not getting every problem right, this kind of time management. I'll give more specific advice. So we'll come back to this problem. I think I give a hint here, which is you never use the quadratic formula on the SAT. So when you were studying, when you were studying quadratic equations in school, all you did was the quadratic formula 90% of the time. But it's you almost never. I'm only saying almost so you guys don't come back and haunt me if there's one problem that requires the quadratic equation. So I'm saying almost never, but in my experience, pretty much never. Have a problem that requires the quadratic formula and you do not need it here. Okay, moving on. Going back to the original point that I promised to make, why not lose sleep over the SAT? So I just want to put your mind at ease. Number one, and I will illustrate this with a chart, and this will also be a primer on how to read charts. Reading charts is important for the SAT. Reading charts is important for reading newspapers and knowing what's going on in the world. Reading charts, knowing how to read charts is important for your career in college. So you're about to see a chart that proves that admission offices care about so much more than the SATs. And here's the proof. Let's read this chart together. So what you're seeing here is, I think, I forget, but 750, something like that, 725 colleges around the world. No, sorry, in the United States, of course, in the United States. And on the y-axis, on the vertical axis, is the college rank. The higher you are, the better. So if you're ranked number 1, you don't want to go to that school. Trust me, you don't want to be with those people. But you'll be at the top of this list. And then if you're ranked not so high, then you're low. So that's how you read the vertical axis. And on the horizontal axis, you have your SAT math score, which you know goes from a low, I think 200 maybe is the lowest. That might not be the case, but that's not interesting, but it goes up to 800. And what you see, what every point, every little circle represents a school. Like, for example, this one might be NYU, which shows that it's ranked about, I know you can see my mouse, around 180. So it's probably not NYU. I think NYU is higher. And their average SAT score among admitted students is around 700. Right? So that's what the numbers are. You pick any circle that's some college. You don't know what college it is. When I made this chart in the background, I knew I had all the data and I could tell you which circle is what college. But right now you just see each circle is a college. And when you look on the left, you see how highly it's ranked. And when you look down, you see what SAT scores they accept on average. And the line down the middle is right around 625, a pretty good score. Some of you will do a lot better. Some of you will do right around that time, right around that score. And then the horizontal red line, I think, cuts off the schools at the top 100. And what do we see here? We see that a ton of schools in the top 100 admit students whose SAT score on average is below 625. That's all the schools here. Look, all of these schools follow my mouse and follow my mouth. All of these schools up here, low SAT scores, high rankings. You know why? Because colleges aren't stupid. They're looking for special, talented, hardworking, mature, unique, interesting individuals. And from the questions that I've seen on the SAT, on your lemma questions, from what I've seen in your questions, you're precisely the kinds of people that these highly ranked universities are looking for. That's how you read this chart. And then look at these schools. These schools are very lowly ranked. They have a very low ranking, but they demand high SAT scores from their students. No correlation. And then there are these schools which the arrogant schools whose admissions offices are full of lazy people. They're highly ranked, but they seem to pay too much attention to the SAT score. But anyway, let's go with the main takeaway. Among the top 100 schools for which all of you are headed, half don't care about the SAT scores because they really care about the kind of person you are. So kudos to them. So that's number one reason not to lose sleep over the SAT. Let's move on. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about colleges in general. You're about to see that chart again, where the most popular schools in Philly, and we chose Philly because we're based in Philly, are labeled green. And I will talk about just how cool colleges are. So first of all, look what this is telling us. These are the 6 schools that our Philly students want to go to. This is UPenn, Lehigh, Temple, Drexel. The big arrow points to Drexel, which is where I teach. The best school if you want to learn math, simply because I'm there. I'm sorry, I momentarily forgot that this is being recorded. So we'll have to edit this out. But do you see they're not in the top 100? They're highly desirable, outstanding schools. I can speak for Drexel. I can speak for Temple. I have lots of friends at Temple. I can speak for Lehigh. I can speak for UPenn. I can speak for Haverford College. I can speak for all the schools in this area. They're fantastic. Here's the most important point, positive. Whatever school you end up going to, you will be so happy you went there. You will be grateful for the people you met, and you will be thinking, boy, if I don't go to this, if I didn't go here, I would have never met John, or I would have never met Jennifer, or I would have never met Steve, or pick your common name. And I'm so happy that I came to these schools because I met these people. And I'm so happy I came to this school and I met these professors. You know, and a lot of your professors will suck, but a lot of your professors will be awesome. And you'll be so grateful that you went to that school and met those people. And every school will give you unbelievable opportunities for moving ahead and moving up. And every school. So the most important thing is not to pass this, is not to do great on the SAT and get into a better school. And it's not that. It's once you end up in school, all schools are great. This is America. All of our colleges are amazing in one way or the other. The most important thing is once you get there, take full advantage of the opportunities that they offer. And every school offers amazing opportunities. So don't stress about the SAT. And that's what I'm not even going to speak to this because that's all I've been doing. Wherever you end up, you'll distinguish yourself. Drexel students, first of all, great school. Second of all, maybe the word prestige is not something that you associate with Drexel. With most departments. You don't associate the word prestige with Drexel. It's just a great school where you will get an education and opportunities, but maybe not prestige. But if you want prestige, if you do great at Drexel, you'll be able to go to any graduate school you want. There's somebody waiting. Let a student in 1 second. Okay, thanks, Jack, for letting me know. Okay, that's the point. So I have so many students who are in my classes, got A+. They're now at Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, all of the frou-frou schools that, yeah. Okay, so I hope that now, half an hour, 40 minutes into our talk, I've put your mind at ease. Now let me talk about the opportunity side of things. What is on the table? What sort of opportunity is on the table? Not a hurdle. What sort of opportunity? Well, I think as a teacher, it's an opportunity to say, you know what? My proportions are not up to par. I'm going to focus on proportions and get better at it. My linear equations are not up to par. I'm going to focus on the linear equations and really improve myself. Maybe fractions. Don't say to yourself, I'm really weak on box and whiskers chart. I will really improve my box and whiskers skills. No, don't do that. Prioritize. But SAT is a great opportunity to do that. Number one. Number two, well, it is an opportunity to make your path easier. You have more choices, right? So it's consistent with the point I made before. Suppose you have fewer choices. They'll still be good, but you could have more choices. And maybe you want to go to a local school. Maybe you want to go to a city school. Maybe you want to go to a school on the West Coast. Maybe you want to go to a small school. Maybe you can go to a larger school, and so on. It's good to have choices. A stronger SAT score will give you those choices. If you don't have choices, you'll have to choose a grade school from a fewer number of choices. But having choices is good. You'll make more money upon graduation. I'll show you it. We'll interpret another chart in a moment. You'll pay less for going to college. You might get a better financial merit scholarship. And you'll graduate with less debt. Also a good positive. You know what's most important thing about graduating with less debt? It's not that you owe less money, but sometimes having debt will push you towards getting a job that pays more as opposed to a job that is better for your long-term career. And I really hope that your first job out of college is focused on your career long-term and not on your need to pay off your college debt. And so you take $120,000 because you can start paying your debt instead of taking the job for $70,000, but great for your career because you're going to be learning and so on. So graduating with less debt is freedom. So another great positive. So here's how salary and debt on average correlate with the SAT score. And this is a very easy chart to read. Salary goes up, debt goes down. Do you guys see that? And I did a calculation, I forget what the number is, but for every 10 points that you do better on the SAT, on average, right? That's a big lesson in probability. What's true on average does not apply to you, right? You are you. Average is average. It's like the most humiliating thing when somebody judges you by the average. Admissions offices know not to do that. They know that those who score 600 on the SAT on average will make $55,000 upon graduation on average. But they know that they won't, that doesn't necessarily apply to you personally. So that's a great lesson in humanism. Average does not apply to you, but an average is an average. It does tell you some information. Okay, let's move on. These are the benefits of doing well on the SAT and the opportunity that you get. So it's a unique opportunity to get ahead. Unique because it comes in a few weeks and it's 3 hours and you're done. You will not have another opportunity like that, 3 hours to get ahead, but you will have other opportunities. I never want to go too far to one end of the scale. There will be other opportunities, but this is a good one. Let's take advantage of it together, and you can, and we can help you. So this is just bragging, but our bragging should make you feel good about it. This is another organization similar to yours, also a very good organization that we're proud to work with, and they did a great job before they partnered with us. Look, you can see that in the 3 years prior to partnering with us, they helped their students improve their scores by over 100 points. And then by using Lemma, the number went up to 180 points. Again, on average, that doesn't apply to you. For some people, it was 250 points. For some people, 300 points, and so on. but again, but on average, that's what it is. So it's within your power to do better. And hopefully I'm already helping you. But just, it's a great feeling to know that something is well within your power to improve. Okay, where are we? Okay, this is a general slide. You can know the content. This is the, if you look at chess as a metaphor, you know, this is Garry Kasparov, my countryman, my former countryman, a good guy. He was the last human who was better than computers. And it was during his reign that the computers crossed over and became better at chess than humans. He really knew his stuff, you know, but that doesn't guarantee that you do great. You also need to know the test, you know, and you need to know how to, the time constraints, the atmosphere, how you feel, and so on. So I'll tell you a little bit more about knowing the test now than about the content. So let's focus on that a little bit. Let's see, first thing you should know, this is where I'm going to save you from all the terrible advice you hear on the internet. None of the hacks work. I don't know how I can raise the stakes. You know, I will give you my firstborn if I'm wrong. It's math hacks don't work. People who think of SAT questions are professionals who know how to fight the hacks. What are the stupid hacks that you hear about? Always choosing B doesn't work. The order is randomized by a computer. They don't even let a human decide what order. That's what I understand. Or they make sure to vary things enough that just doesn't work. And neither does choosing C. That's another strategy you hear about. Don't do that. Small caveat, if you're running out of time and you didn't answer 10 questions, then you can guess. But then you can guess any letters. Choosing B or C won't help. Oh, choosing E. Okay. Oh, that's a joke. Do you guys get it? You know, there is no E. It's only A, B, C, D. So definitely don't choose E. Okay. There's a technique known as back solve. I won't even talk about what it is. Maybe I'll mention it. The idea is to take the multiple choices and plug them into the text of the problem and see if it fits. It almost never works. They specifically think about how to make that not work. And if it works, that means you understand the question so well that you don't need to use it. And you're just wasting your time doing it 4 times instead of doing it once. And I know I don't have to tell you this because I remember how most of you did the first problem. Those of you who said 4 instead of -4 did the exact right thing. You just solved the problem. It's always faster. Plug-in. Man, that's a terrible one. Plug-in is when you have to say which 2 expressions are equivalent. And instead of saying which of them are equal, you start plugging in numbers and comparing. Boy, that's just a lot of work that almost never works. And if it does, it means there is a simpler way to do it. And if you know what to plug in, it means you know the simpler way to do it. Don't watch videos that advocate these things. You're welcome. You know, at the time of writing the slide, I know what I meant by this last bullet. Oh, yeah. Now I remember what it was. There are some videos that say, you know what, if you have a question there and 3 of the answers have the square root and 1 doesn't, then the answer probably has the square root in it. You know, things like that. Don't pay attention to things like that. They don't work. Don't try hacks. Don't try hacks. So that's just one slide on what not to do. Let's focus on what to do. Remember another positive thing. The SAT is not malicious. I will now ask you to solve this visual problem. I know that Jack went over this with you, so if you already know the answer, then sorry, you're not being entertained. But take a look at it if you're seeing it for the first time. I think most of you would be seeing it for the first time. So you'll get it wrong, guaranteed. And then I'll tell you Why you got it wrong?
For the students on the that were at the onboarding session, and Pavel, considering I ask this question often, I don't know the answer. The
Yeah, I
actual.
don't know. I forget the answer, but we'll
Yeah.
figure it out right now.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out right now.
Yeah,
But this is a malicious question. This is a malicious question. I'll bet you they asked this question in Russia. That dude kind of looks Russian to me. See, it says R for Russia on his hoodie. Okay, here's what they want you to do. Do you see 3 pairs of shoes? You add them up, that's 30. So I'm doing this the wrong way. And so each pair of shoes is 10. You guys agree with me? I'm going to say yes. Each pair of shoes is 10. So now you look at the next line and you see that a pair of shoes, which is 10, plus 2 dudes is 20. So 2 dudes must be 10. So each one of them is 5. Okay, so a dude is 5, a pair of shoes is 10, and a dude is 5. And now you look at the next one. So now the dude is 5. And so the 2 whistles must be 8. And so each whistle is 4. Yeah, okay, good. So a whistle is 4, a dude is 5, and a pair of shoes is 10. And you look at the next one, and you just add them together. 10 plus 5 plus 4, and you say 19. 10 plus 5 plus 4, and you do 19. That was my first answer, and that's wrong. Because it's not plus, it's times. Do you see that? They break the pattern. And so if you think you figured it out and you do plus, then you got it wrong. So it's 5 times 4, which is 20, plus 10, which is 30. And that's why everybody's saying 30, and everybody's wrong. Oh, hold on, let the disappointment sink in. I'm really enjoying this. Because you're not seeing something. Do you see that on the last one? Here comes the malicious part. There's no whistle on the guy. Do you see that? Look closely. Whistle, whistle, guy with a whistle, no whistle. So it's 5 minus 4. So that's 1 or whatever. 1. So it's 10 plus 1 times 4. 14. That's my answer right now. Did anyone say 14? No. Can somebody who said 19?
Pavel, did you get the second whistle?
Where's the second whistle?
The doubling of the whistles. You see how in the third row it's 2 whistles side by side, and then in the last one it's 1. So it's even more kooky.
Wait, in the second to last line or the second line?
Second to last, you see how it's 2 whistles side by side.
Yeah, no, I did account for that because I said the 2 whistles add up to 8, so each one of them is 4. Oh, you're right.
Yes.
Oh my God.
As everyone can tell, we've never actually done.
Oh my God. Oh, so each whistle is 2.
Yes.
Oh, let's see, maybe one of
and
you
then
was
each
right.
whistle on the guy is probably 1, we can assume.
Yes.
So it's a very complicated problem.
Oh, sorry, where is it? Coming back? Hold on, it's coming back. Okay, so each whistle is worth 2. So this is, so a guy without a whistle is 3, not 1. 3 times 2, 6, plus 10, 16. 16. Did anyone say 16? Now I'm going to check. 16. Let's see if anyone cheated and just pretended to do it. Okay, everybody's honest. Nobody said 16. Okay, this is a malicious problem. There would never be a malicious problem on the SAT, so you can just relax and not even expect this sort of thing. Okay, so let's just put this out of our mind and move on to something a little bit more substantial. Okay, general pointers, the do's. I've already talked about it. Proper time management. Your goal is to finish it, finish the test. I'll make a little bit more on that later. If you slip up once and lose track of time and spend half an hour on a problem, That's a mistake that's so costly. If you avoid this one mistake, I'll bet you among people who do poorly below their ability on the SAT, that's the one mistake they make. When I was your age and I took the SAT, I made that mistake on my first SAT. It's very easy to make that mistake. You remind yourself of the rules before, of these pointers before you're about to take the test, and then you get the problem, you get stubborn, you momentarily forget, and you spend 20 minutes on a problem and you're out of time on 10 problems. Yes, finish the test. Time management is the number one thing, and I think I gave you some good advice on how not to make that mistake. Develop a personal style. What do I mean by that? Some of you like looking at the multiple choices first, then read the problem. Some of you like doing in the opposite order. I've seen people for whom it works either way. Decide what works for you. Sometimes looking at the multiple choices allows you to read the problem with greater purpose. This also works for English and writing, for reading and writing. Sometimes reading the problem first helps you put yourself in the context of the problem, and then the multiple choices make sense. Or in the case of smart students like you sometimes solve the problem before you even look at the multiple choices. That's the best way. You do want to double check your work, but that's the best way. That's the way that takes, I'm not talking about correctness, but the least amount of energy. Once you start interacting with multiple choices, your attention goes from solving the problem to some kind of other mental exercise. If you can just solve the problem, great. Some people like circling every answer that they come up with, filling in. Others like circling 10 at a time and then filling all 10. The idea being that the act of carefully filling the question takes attention and energy. Maybe that's true for you, maybe it's not true for you. For me, I'm more nervous that I'll forget to fill it in or that I'll lose my place than the amount of time that it takes me. So I figured out that for me, once I know the answer, I carefully fill in that question, making sure it's the right line. Then I put it out of my mind, go to the next problem. Figure out what works for you in many respects. And the only way to do it is through practice. So I'll make this point several times. The SAT is a marathon. It's 3.5 hours at least. You get there, first you stand in line to register. If you show up early when there's no line, that means you'll wait for 1.5 hours, depending on how big. It varies from locations. But where I take it, there's a line 200 people long, and it takes 45 minutes to register, and it's anxiety. And by the time you sit down, you're tired. And then you have to fill out the forms and carefully copy one and the same number in different places. And you're afraid that if you make a mistake, your score won't count. And that's stressful and it takes energy. And then you read the instructions and sign the pledge. And by the time the test starts, it's already 45 minutes of writing. And then English and writing and reading comes first. Boy, that's a ton of reading. A ton of reading. And then by the time you get to math, I remember that's my experience with the new SAT. I was like, finally, math, easy. And it's still a lot of reading. And I'm not a good reader. And it's just, you have to be prepared for a lot of reading. The only way to prepare is to train. You have to sit. You have to simulate the conditions on the test. If you don't get to put your headphones on and totally focus, there are students distracting you. There are foot tappers. There are pen snappers. There are gum chewers. There are proctors who are clipboard clickers and all sorts of things. So put yourself in a loud room, relatively loud room where there's stuff happening, and practice getting through the whole test. You can do that on Lemma. We tell you how long the breaks are. You can basically simulate the entire experience of the test. And And when you take the real test once, you will automatically do better on the next one because you know what's coming and just the logistics of it and just how much reading it is important to know, because I remember it truly surprised me just how much reading it is. You don't get a sense for it when you study for the SAT half an hour at a time, which is usually what happens, or 15 minutes at a time. That 3.5 hours of reading really hits you. So be prepared to do that. And being able to sit and read for 3.5 hours, it's an important skill in college and in life. That's what I just said. That's what I just said. That's what I just said. Yeah. Don't do. So if you find an app where you're just going through problems on a bus, or now you don't get to take the bus, but whatever it is that you do, and you're just knocking off problems while you're doing it on your phone, it's there are several products like that. I think it'll be detrimental to your performance. If you feel like it's really helping you refresh the topics, do it. But if you don't feel strongly that way, I think it's detrimental, because that's not what the test is like. It's like practicing sprinting to do a marathon. It's just not what the test is like, and that's not how learning happens. So I would suggest don't do that. And then we'll talk about it again, I think, in the future, but the night before, we call it trust your training. Totally relax. Your mental freshness with all the reading you need to do, how relaxed you are, your lack of anxiety, your determination to enjoy the experience, your lack of fatigue, a good night's sleep, a meal you enjoy are super underrated and are super important. You guys are young people, don't know yourselves well. When you get to be an old man like me, you begin to appreciate how important it is. And what happens to a lot of people is they might do poorly on the SAT and they think, I'm not good about taking tests, I'm not good about whatever. And all it is was they didn't have a good breakfast, they didn't get a good night's sleep, they lost their concentration, and it cost them 50 points. So take this advice to heart and just relax the day before. Do your favorite activity, maybe not computer games, but if you like sports, my goodness, that's just the best thing to do. Yeah, finish the test. I look around and I see students done with math after 15 minutes, and I know they're not done. I know they're like, all right, this was a practice run, I'll come back. No, finish the test. Make it your goal to finish the test. It's okay to guess for the last few questions on the test, but commit yourself to finishing the test. Oh, that's a good one. Speak up for your rights. If there is an alarm all of a sudden, a fire alarm, and it distracted you, demand an extra 15 minutes and just say totally, and the proctor has a lot of discretion. They run the clock and they'll say, you know what, that's fair. If there was an alarm and it totally knocked you out of your concentration, if the proctor is using a keyboard and the clicking of the keyboard is distracting you, which is something that really affects me. And one of the times that I took the test, the proctor used a clicky keyboard, and I didn't speak up because I was embarrassed. I was an old man surrounded by the young people like you. I didn't want to complain, but I should have. Sometimes if the clicking of the keyboard really distracts you, speak up and say, would you mind not doing that? It's really distracting me. Whatever happens, if it's too cold, if it's too hot, if there's if there's something happening outside, if there are kids passing through the hallway, you can say, can you pause the clock while the kids are passing? Speak up. You're entitled to all of those privileges. They're not privileges. You're entitled to those things. Okay. Now I think we're getting to the point where I'm telling you too much. And so I'm glad you're going to hear it, but then maybe you want to look over the slides and you'll know what I'm talking about. I know I've been talking for a long time, but let me mention some no-brainers You're not penalized for wrong answers, so there's no excuse for leaving questions unanswered. When there is a minute left and you know you're done, go in and make sure every single question is filled. What you put in doesn't matter if you didn't get to the question. Yes, there you go. That's the conclusion from the first bullet. Yeah, be very careful. Don't lose your line. Don't fill two answers for a question by mistake. If you erase completely. Yes, total no-brainer. Oh yeah, so this everybody will tell you. This is very true. This is not a hack. This is very true. The way the SAT works in math, this is math specific. Questions start easy and then become harder. And then when you get to, it's called grid-in questions, they reset and become easy again. So let's read it from a graph. This is what the graph looks like. Do you see what's happening? Let's say there are 38 questions on, I forget, that's the non-calculator section, 38 questions. And the first 30 are multiple choice and the remaining 8 are grid-in. And they start easy, so the vertical axis is the difficulty. And on the bottom, you see the number of the question. They start simple and then get hard. What's the conclusion from this? Don't run out of time when you're about to start doing grid-in questions that are simple. Do the simple grid-in questions first. Some people advocate that you start with the grid-in section so you don't forget that, because grid-in questions are easier. Do you see how the grid-in portion of the graph doesn't get up as high in difficulty? Some people say that that's your personal choice. I feel that I'm more concerned about losing my place and filling in the wrong row on the answer sheet, so I don't do this. But if you want to do the grid-in questions and then put them out of your mind and you don't have to worry about remembering doing the easy grid-in questions early on, then do the grid-in questions first. Personal choice. But definitely do the grid-in questions before you get to these really hard ones. Yeah. So once again, your choices are just start with grid-in, do all of them, and then get back to multiple choice, or do the first 10, maybe 20 multiple choice, and before you tackle the next 10 multiple choice questions that are very hard, switch to grid-in. Just very carefully pay attention to not putting the answer in the wrong row. That's understandable. Yes, these are saying what I just said. Yeah, be familiar with how grid-in works. So if you were bored by all of these talking, here's a math question for you. So this is a grid-in question, since we brought up the question of a grid-in, of grid-ins. Let's see what you would, so in your, not multiple choice, so in the chat, put in, what number is this? What number is 10,000%? Let's wait for a few. What number is 10,000%? All right, 7, I'll take a look. Oh, I really hope, if you come to Drexel and you take a course from me, you'll know this. I love wrong answers. Wrong answers is a conversation starter. The right answer is a conversation stopper. Because what's there to talk about? Look at all of you guys. You guys are all conversation stoppers. All of you. All of you. Yeah. So I'll comment on Jalen's answer, which is correct. And if in this question, so the answer is 100, because percent means 100th. So it's 10,000 times 100. So that's 100. That you guys are all right. So what you would typically put here is 1000, and that would be correct. But if you think that it's the decimal 100, and all you would have space for is 100 dot, which you can technically not do. Only the dots are only available for the middle two, I believe, if my recollection is correct. But if that was possible and you did, and if you said, like for instance, Jaylene would say 1, 0, 0, period, that's also correct. So Gridden is very tolerant. And Gridden in lemma imitates that perfectly. If you put in a period, it'll accept it, and it'll accept all of the same answers as the SAT, as the official SAT. So I enjoy Griddens because I feel like multiple choice, they're just being lazy. They don't want to grade your tests. So they're just being lazy. I wish all questions were gridded, but in any case. Next one. Oh yeah, so that's a reminder of what a percent is. Percent is a funny thing. It's so simple, it's complicated. Like that human nature example that we used, that we talked about before. Okay, next slide. Yes, I'm not going to talk about this. We're just going to go over that problem. I just want to reemphasize it because I feel like it's the greatest secret to getting a higher score, which is if you start a problem because you think you know how to do it the complicated way, you're doing it wrong. Stop, back up, find a simple way to do it. These are the words that are saying what I just said, so I'm going to skip them. You can read them later. Yes, yes. I'm not going to repeat everything I just said. Yes, great. Okay, so now 3 examples of problems like that. Here is one. This was from the SAT test that I took. One of my practice runs from last year. All right, let's hear in the chat. Take your time. This shouldn't be fast. Take your time. There's a red herring in this one, and that's very common, especially for, this is called linear systems. See, I'm making it hard for you to solve it by blabbering. And that could happen on the SAT. There are distractions. I'm doing this on purpose. I'll shut up for a minute. Anybody wants to give me the answer? See, they're successfully tricking you into thinking that this problem is complicated. Okay, let's have a brave soul. We need a brave soul. Go out on a limb. No. Okay. Oh, there's one. Okay. Do we have 2? Do we have 2? I'll give you a hint. It's D. Is that hint helpful? No, no, D. Okay, let me explain to you why this is D and why it's a red herring. So this is called a linear system of equation. Linear system of equations. How do they teach you to solve it in high school? Substitution. Well, I have a hint for you. You will almost never have to use substitution. That's sort of the long way to solve it. Mathematicians would love the word robust. You never have to do it on the SAT. On lemma, we have a bunch of questions that illustrate the sorts of things that they can ask you about linear systems, and you never solve them by substitution. I don't believe we have a single problem that requires substitution. Here, what you need to realize is that the first equation you don't even need. It's just the second equation. Let's just look at the second equation altogether. 6x minus 3y equals 0. Right? The 0 is the key. If you move 3y to the right side, or some math teachers say, add 3y to both sides, you get 6x equals 3y. I'm not typing it. I hope you can. It's hard to listen to math, but I hope this one you can do. 6x equals 3y. You cancel 3, and it becomes 2x equals y. Well, if 2x equals y, then x over y is 1/2. If 2x equals y, then y is twice as big as x. So x over y is 1/2. All linear systems questions are that simple. And suppose you don't know the answer, how to solve this. Suppose you don't know how to solve this. And you get it wrong. That's a tiny blip. But if you make the mistake of doing substitution on this problem, that'll cost you 5 problems later. That's what I need to save you from. I don't know how many times I've already said it. That's my mission today. Don't look at a problem like this and say, oh, I know how to solve it by substitution. I will get through this because I know that that always leads to the right answer. I'll compute x, I'll compute y, I'll divide x by y, and that'll give me the answer. Even if you get the answer wrong, the College Board folks won because they made you spend 15 minutes. It would take me 15 minutes to do this by substitution carefully. So there you go. I believe I've made my point. Here is another one. I'll save it for you, but it looks incredibly complicated. I won't give you the answer now. I'll just give you a hint. I'll shut up for 30 seconds and I'll give you a hint. This problem is in lemma. If somebody can answer it, boy, I'll be impressed. So again, if you start finding x, you're going to waste 30 minutes and you won't get the right answer. The idea here, I'll just say it and then, oh, hold on, what? Let's see what's there. So 25/9 is the wrong answer, but I know that your thinking is right. Your approach is exactly right. It's a fantastic mistake to make, and I'm very happy to see it because I know that you were thinking right. You were thinking what I'm about to say, and that is you have to square both sides. Square both sides. And the one word I would add is carefully. On the right, you have 25/9. On the left, I'll let you figure it out. But that's the kind of algebraic manipulation that you should be able to do. And also, you shouldn't have to be able to do anything harder than the manipulation that squaring the left side requires. And you'll see that the answer is basically 25/9. You'll just have to make a small adjustment. And when you know what it is, it'll be very rewarding. Okay, next problem. I think it'll be the problem that I showed you in the very beginning. Let's see. Yeah, once again, if you started solving this problem, it would be a quadratic equation. You might be tempted to use a quadratic formula. Never use the quadratic formula. Way too complicated for all the math problems on the SAT. We have about 10 minutes remaining, and I think I'll be right on time. So let's get back to this question. Again, I'll be impressed if somebody gives me the right answer. I'll be impressed. But this will be a great example of how questions like this work on the SAT. This is a flagship SAT question where they try. I'll shut up and let you do it. All right, let's have a brave soul. Let's see. All right, 2.
Try working with him, Ryan.
Yes. No. My tone is meant for the authors of the SAT problems and for you guys to outsmart them. All right, D. All right, come on. We need more brave people. Right. Sulfur. All right. Okay, let me talk about this problem. So what they want you to do, I don't believe it's D. So let's figure out together. So again, it's a quadratic equation. Like, oh, 2 more chats. I'm going to see what they say before I speak. Yeah, very good. Now the right answer. I love Angel's answer. That's the best. That's the best. Someone was paying attention. Okay, so it's a quadratic. Oh, there's one more. Okay, good. So it's a quadratic equation. They want you to start using the quadratic formula. The answer will have crazy square roots in it. And then when you start plugging them in here, it'll take you half an hour and you won't get the right answer. Okay, so you should kind of think backwards. You should say, okay, what can I do that's easy? Look for the simple. So the complicated in this problem is to try and solve this equation and get an ugly answer. That's the complicated way. But what can I do about this problem that's simple? Well, multiplying this out is simple. R plus 1 times R plus 6. Again, I'll speak, and it's hard to listen to math. I know that. It's hard to listen to math, but I'll still do it. When you multiply this out, you'll get R squared. That's good. And then you'll get 1R and 6R. So it'll be plus 7R, just like this 7. So it'll be R squared, just like X squared, plus 7R. And then the 2 constants will multiply. So plus 6. So instead of being, so if it were R squared plus 7R plus 5, the answer would be 0, because R is the solution to this equation. What does it mean to be a solution to an equation? It means that if you plug it in, you get 0. So if you were to plug in R for X, you would get R squared plus 7R plus 5. And because it is a solution, that would equal 0. So R squared plus 7R plus 5 is 0. Then what is R squared plus 7R plus 6? Well, it's 1 more than 0. So it's 1. And I'm not saying this problem is easy to solve. I'm not saying that. I think you almost need to see this, shown to you. What I'm saying is that I would not have solved it unless I first encountered it. I'm reading at the same time as speaking. I would not have solved this unless somebody showed me how to solve this. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that a problem that looks complicated and in fact invites a complicated way to solve it actually has a simple solution. Now, there was a student who requested that I go over it again. So I won't do it right this second. I'll get through the rest of the points that I'm trying to make, but then I will not leave until all the questions are answered. So we're in about 5 minutes. I actually may be done, but in about 5 minutes, I will stay here for as long as it takes to answer all the questions. Oh, I think this is the last point, calculator. I'll make it quickly, these points, because I know you guys are tired and we're basically out of time. But don't use the calculator too much. Calculator, in some ways, is used maliciously by the authors of the SAT to bait you into doing the wrong thing, something that would be complicated, time-consuming, and will probably give you the wrong answer. They want to make sure that students who do well on the SAT are those students who see right through that and recognize that it's actually a simple question. So that happens more often than not. I'll give a few examples. And in other examples, you know, a calculator takes your attention away from your doing. You're looking elsewhere. You're doing something. You can misclick. You can come back and lose your line. You can come back and lose your train of thought. It can make you lose your concentration. Using the calculator comes at a cost. So consider it and try to solve problems without a calculator if you can. It's just a better mode of working. Your brain is thinking, you're knocking the problems off one at a time. One more, one more, one more, one more. And so that's a better way of doing it. And when you say all of a sudden, oh, I have to use the calculator, all of a sudden your attention has moved to another part of your desk. And now you're paying attention to your fingers and so on. So let's see what I say here. So yeah, so some pros. Yeah, it's a great tool when you need it. It will never make a mistake. And if you have to multiply 12 by 17, yeah, I would use a calculator. And I know you guys are all very good at using it, but here come the cons. Yeah, that's the biggest one. If you use it and spend 15 minutes solving on a problem, they got the best of you. Yeah, that's where you go. Don't let them do this. You can make an error. And that's the biggest. So all the points that I just made. Yeah, and you only truly need it for a few problems. Even on the calculator section, by my calculation, 2 or 3 problems really need it. Sometimes you have to raise a fraction to, I'm sorry, a decimal to a decimal. Sometimes you just have to multiply 2 numbers. Like 12 times 17, I would use a calculator. I don't want to make a mistake. Okay, here's an example. I won't go over it now because you guys are exhausted. This will be one of the questions that we'll actually ask you in one of the assignments, unless we already have. So, but this is an example of a question where they really want you to reach for your calculator. And the answer is C, because it doesn't matter in what order something happens. But if you try doing the calculation, it would take you 15 minutes and you'll get it wrong. Let's do this one. Just to humor me, my last chance to make you do a math question. If somebody can answer this, be brave. Yes, you have to remember fractional powers. It's not high on my list of things to review, but it's an important topic in math. Not super high. Oh, you guys are good. Oh, Angel, I'm so happy you didn't choose E again, because that would mean that you're funnier than me, and I cannot tolerate that. Yes, C. Why is this question here? Because you can think to yourself, oh, all I need to do is use my calculator. It's the easiest thing in the world. 64 power 60 power, I guess, parentheses, 1 over 120, close paren. Such an easy thing to do on a calculator, especially if you're good at a calculator, with your calculator. But this won't work. A calculator cannot do 64 to the 60th. It's too large for just about any calculator. If your calculator can do it, your calculator is a million times better than mine. Yeah, you can't do this on a calculator. What you can do is remember that you multiply the powers. So it's 60 times 1 over 120, so it's 1/2. So it's 64 to the 1/2. And that's 8, because that's square root. I think that's the last one. Oh, so I've already made this point. I'll just give you a little diagram. You can study it later. If you needed to learn one thing, I would say fractions. Last slide. If you needed to learn 2 things, I would say proportions. And as you know, the assignments that we've been giving you, that's what they emphasize. If you needed to learn 3 things, linear functions and equations. And percents fall under proportions. Then a little bit of algebra. It's good for the SAT. It's good for college. It's good for your mind. Then reading graphs and charts. It's not here because it's so common on the SAT, although it is, but because you need to be an informed human being who reads newspapers and understands charts. And it's good and it's good for the SAT. And analysis of data, it's here by for the same principle. It's good to exercise your mind, but it's not so important. Do I have another one? I hope not. Yeah, no, that's the last one. So where most of the students, in my experience, in terms of the sweet spot, is between proportions and linear functions and equations. A majority of problems easily on the SAT are directly or indirectly related to these two topics. So, and they're the most important in math. So that's your sweet spot. And let me answer the question now that we're finished. Let me go to the thank you slide. I really enjoyed this. And to see your beautiful alert faces is just a treat. And I really thank you for showing up and turning on your camera. But let me answer the question. How much time should you spend on lemma? It's not how much time. It's whether or not you use it efficiently. If you feel like, oh, I learned something from this question. I learned something from the next one. I learned something from this one. Good, keep going. If you feel like, whoa, this question really confused me, I'm gonna ask a question. Just the very fact of asking a question, you've already won. You've already gotten ahead. Try to, I think Jack mentioned it when he was meeting with you. Articulating the question in good English, you know, is half the battle. Very often you will find that by the time you have figured out how to ask the question in a precise way, the answer occurred to you. And a lot of the learning, in my experience, is learning to have this dialogue with yourself. Is when you say, oh, gee, what is this problem asking? Okay, I think it's asking this. Well, why is this a tricky problem? It's tricky because I don't know that. Well, can I find that? Oh, that's very interesting. What would I do if I were physically in that situation? Something that the new SAT emphasizes, real life situations. Well, how would I do that calculation? Let me put my mind. Okay, Dennis and Axel go to work. How would I do this calculation? And by the time you have this conversation with yourself and are prepared to ask me a question and figured out how to word it well, the answer will occur to you, or something else will occur to you, or you will have learned something. So if you're using lemma in a productive way like this, keep using it for as long as you're enjoying it. You can't overuse it. Yeah, I don't want to give you a time, because if you say, this question is stupid, this question is boring, oh, why do they ask me about the median? You know, don't use it at all, right? If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. I want you to enjoy it, and I want you to interact with us, and I want you to feel like you're making tiny steps forward and feeling good about the process. That's my answer to that question. Okay, any other questions? You guys are heroes. An hour and a half. You're ready for college. You're ready for college. Right.
Hello. We are going to stay on the chat, on the Zoom, I suppose, until all the questions are addressed. But unless, Pavel, you have any other concluding remarks?
No, other than thank you, no.
Those students that want to head out, go grab dinner. I know you guys have probably had a long day with school, and then we really appreciate the time to jump on this call. Any students that want to review the specific questions that Pavel kind of got to towards the end, I think that Pavel and I will stick around and address them. Other than that, you guys are all free to go. And I will also be on the line for any other questions involving using lemma, getting access to lemma if you haven't yet. And I'll put our emails are just our names at lem.ma. Oops, I sent that just to Pavel. I meant to send it to everybody.
I know your email already.
Yes. And you guys can email us directly as well if you have any problems. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you all for making the time.
Thanks, guys. All right. Let me answer the math question. Boy, I'm grateful for a chance to talk about math. I haven't done it all summer. There's probably a faster way to get to that slide, but there we go. You guys nod if the answer is yes. You can just see the question. Nothing's blocking it, right? No, okay. This window's blocking it.
I just see the problem, Pavel.
You just see the problem? Okay, good. Okay. So I won't answer the question directly. I'll just tell you this. And that's actually, if I may speak about how math is done everywhere. Thank you, Casey. We never solve, as human beings, we never solve the problem that we need to solve. That's not the math skill. The math skill, the math art, the art of math is finding the problem that we can't solve. That's what advanced humanity. The most admired mathematicians are not the mathematicians who solved hard problems. They're the mathematicians who came up with simple problems we can solve. That's as an aside. So here, I'll be myself. I remember looking at this problem and saying, I have no idea. No idea. First, there's a mixture of X and R. That's confusing, right? That's also an example of matching up normal speech with math speak, and why are there two letters? That's confusing, right? But it's common in math. So X is the variable, but R is that special number. That's the solution. So that's what R is. R is that if you were to use the quadratic formula and you found your answer, and it would be something like -7 plus or minus square root of 24, if I did that right. No, 29, sorry. Divided by 2, ugly number, but that number would be R. So that's what R is. That's why there are two letters. X is just the variable, but R denotes that very number. So that's already a good thing to explain to yourself. But still, no idea how to do it, because I don't want to find R. I don't want to do it. It's too ugly. So now I'm going to say the key sentence. If you don't know what to do what you can. Not just an SAT, in life. In life. With your significant other. Sometimes I feel like when you don't know what to say something. Say I love you. That's safe. I've been married for 20 years. Not married, but in this relationship, it always works. You can put a question mark in the end and say, I love you. It's better than not saying anything. Say something. So it carries over to math. If you don't know when you don't know what to do something. What can you do here? I can multiply out R plus 1 times R plus 6. Now, I happen to not like FOIL, but that's what it's called in school, FOIL. You FOIL this. Does this sound familiar? FOIL? Can you guys nod so I know that? Yes, FOIL. Yeah, FOIL, for those of you who don't know, is just a rule to remember what to do here when you multiply this out. When you multiply this out, you're multiplying the first element from the first set of parentheses by the first element of the second set of parentheses. So it'll be R times R. So it's R squared. And then it's 1 times R plus R. And then it's R times 6 plus 6R. So you have 1R plus 6R, that's 7R. And then plus 6. Now I just want to, as a disclaimer, I'm not going to teach you how to multiply this out right now. If that's where your difficulty is, first of all, that's not a bad place to have a difficulty. But if that's where your difficulty lies, that's a good problem to take offline, whether it's with us or your friends or your family or your math teacher, that's a great thing to sit for an hour, ask for help, and do it. But now I'm going to put it in the chat. Sorry, in the chat, what we have here. We have R. Hold on, let me make sure I answer all. R squared plus 7R plus 6. That's what we have. Look in the chat. When you multiply it out, why did we multiply it out? I'll repeat, because we can, not because we think that's, oh, we're smart, we saw the path to the solution. That's not why I multiplied it out. I multiplied it out because I always do what I can. Not what I have to, but what I can. You know? And then you get R squared plus 7R plus 6. And he was like, oh, I see what's going on. Because I know, let me copy below it. You say, I know if it were not plus 6, but plus 5, look at the chat now. If it didn't say plus 6, if it said plus 5, then it's 0. Why? Because R is a solution to the quadratic equation. That's what it means to be a solution to the quadratic equation. It means it's that special number that if I plug it in for X, then I'll have a match. I will get 0. So if I plug in that special, yes, it's ugly number. We already figured it out. Minus 7 plus or minus square root of 29 divided by 2. But it doesn't matter here how ugly that number is. I know that if I plug it into that expression, I'll get 0. So I know that R is that number where R squared plus 7R plus 5 equals 0. But this problem is asking me for R squared plus 7R plus 6. And if I know that plus 5 gives me 0, then I know that plus 6 gives me 1. And that's C. Did that help?
It helped out a little.
Yeah.
I still don't understand though. So when it states a letter is a solution of the quadratic equation, do we look like for the difference?
No. When it states that it's the solution, are you asking me why is there a new letter?
Yeah, because I was able to solve out R plus 1 times R plus 6. Like that was simple. But
when you say solve, you mean multiply it out.
Yeah, multiply it out. My
Great.
bad.
Great. Yes. Good. You got it. And then you saw that it was very similar to the equation, but said plus 6 instead of saying plus 5.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in those terms.
So yes, we're looking, and now I understand what you mean by difference. So yes, we're looking for, let me use the word discrepancy.
Discrepancy.
Yes. So we don't know what R is. That's kind of the key here. It's funny, we're solving for something, but we don't know what R is. But that's kind of the key, yes. We don't know what R is, but we know what R squared plus 7R plus 5 is. That's the key. We don't know what R is because it's ugly. But we do know what R squared plus 7R plus 5 is, and that's 0. That's the hardest step in this solution. That means that you understand and are able to say in words what it means to be a solution to the quadratic equation on a very, very good level when you say that I don't know what R is in terms of its numerical value, but I know that if I were to plug in R into that expression, the result will be 0. So I know that I don't know the numerical value of R, but I know that R squared plus 7R plus 5 equals 0. And the problem is asking me R squared plus 7R plus 6. So that has a difference of 1 from what I know. That's where the difference comes in. It's different by 1 from what I know to be 0. And if it's 1 more than the quantity that I know to be 0, then it equals 1.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Not easy, Not
I'm-
easy, but
I'm thinking of it.
simple. Not
Hold on.
easy. Yes.
A pen blew out.
Hey, Tyler, because I'm talking, can you, can you ask Jack the question you just asked and he'll answer? And I see you texting me privately with a very good question. Just direct it at Jack. And he'll answer that question while I'm fielding.
I did. I already asked him that.
Okay, perfect. Did he answer?
No.
Sorry.
That's all right. He will in a second.
Oh,
We make a great team.
Is it only you that works on this for us?
I'm sorry?
Is it only you two? You and what was
No,
the
we
other-
have a developer.
Yeah, because I realized that for the questions it was you and Jack that answered.
Yeah,
them.
no, we field all the questions. We're your point of contact for OppNet.
All right.
Yeah. So you have to like us. You don't have a choice. You can't ask for someone else.
I still gotta look back at these questions.
Oh, sure. We'll share this whole presentation. And then you
Oh, like that. The questions that I solved this weekend. Because I remember I had a few problems with some.
So there are a few questions that I haven't answered yet, and I will do that tonight. You're saying you asked some questions through Lemma and I didn't answer?
No, you answered them.
Oh, okay,
This
good.
guy usually gave me like the solution of like press show solution, but I just hate pressing show solution because it's just like I give in.
No. That's not what it's like. It means you're having dialogue with the platform. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. I think that not a bad strategy if you just want to pick on the methods is to read the problem and then immediately read the solution. I think trying to solve the problem, you're practicing something a little bit different, which is also very important for life and for SAT. I'm sorry, I realize that to you it appears like I'm looking down, but it's because I'm looking at.
Yeah, you're looking at your emails and you're showing.
No, I'm looking at the window where your faces are.
Oh.
Put it in the corner and now I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Thank you either way. I have to all set up and thank you so much. Pavel.
Oh, no, of course.
Jamie?
So, yeah, so, but I feel very strongly, do not feel shy about reading the solution. That's the dialogue we want you to engage in with the system. That's the best way to use it. I think that when you're trying to solve it on your own, you're practicing something else, which is persistence, very good. Stamina, very good. Active thinking, very good. But if you want to get the most experience under your belt, then it's best to just read the solution, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for
Thank you
being
so
so
much.
enthusiastic and active and for your humor and everything. But you missed that part. That's good. All right.
any other questions, everybody?
Yeah, the explanation really helped out. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it, Omar. Yes.
Thanks for your activity through the whole chat, Omar, as well.
Yes, it was very good. Yes. And also you asked a bunch of questions through Lemma or no? No, that was a different Omar. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Omar, you're on mute if you're saying something.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, but like I have my camera here and like you guys are here. That's why it looks
Oh,
like
yeah, that's what was
yeah,
happening.
same-
with me
same thing
too.
with you, yeah.
No, I understand.
You
Yeah.
look like a streamer, Omar. Seriously.
Thank you. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
That's the whole vibe.
And I look like I have a giant forehead.
Don't worry, dude. We're all here.
Yes.
It's
All
rough
right.
out here.
If we don't have any other questions, Ruth, Tyler, anybody else have any questions?
All right. Well, you know where to find us. And thanks again for making it so much fun. And
Someone asked, I don't know if anybody's still in here, someone had asked when the next assignment is. I think that was actually you, Tyler. Tomorrow is the next assignment. And in the first email that I sent out to the whole cohort, there's a little PDF that I made that's like a little curriculum doc that you can follow along. I think tomorrow's assignment is going to be out at noon, I think, or we might do it earlier, but another set of worksheets, a reading and writing worksheet, and more of this button goal question sets that we do as well. And next week's live session will be focusing, broadly speaking, on reading and writing.
I think, Jack, am I wrong? Reading, and the next one is writing. Isn't it like that?
Sorry, it's the next two sessions will be on reading and writing
Yes.
by another one of our friends and colleagues, Mike.
Right.
You won't
But
have to.
Mike, so Mike will be there for the sessions, but he doesn't answer questions on
Yes, correct.
Ask through Lemma. That's just us.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Oh,
Have a
hi-
good night. Enjoy your dinner. your
Yeah, thank you
birthday.
so much. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye. We really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night.
I'll address your question.
Bye. Thank you.